Hey shoppers! Exciting news! Head over to top5.printify.me for awesome goodies. Our memberships are coming soon, and you'll get half off all merchandise. Don't miss out, link in the description. Welcome back to Top 5.
Because they're afraid of being caught up in the gossip.
What are they saying about you,
It's been found that I killed my wife. And as the police know themselves, and you yourselves know, well, I was in Luton, taking the kids to the pictures.
What grounds do they think they've got for saying that?
Well, because I was happy-go-lucky, I suppose. I was a bit of a womaniser, but that's all. That's the only reason.
How did the death of your wife affect you?
Affect me? Well, I closed the business for 7 weeks while the police were investigating it. I lost a lot of stock throughout, and I've had to sell the business now at a loss. The kids are alright, but I think myself and the kids think that it would be better to get away, because it's their future. They've got to live with a shadow over them all the time.
Are the police any nearer, in fact, catching the person that did kill your wife?
Well, they're saying they are, because they're eliminating people all the time. So they must be nearer to catching the person.
If ever they do catch the killer, will you come back here?
I don't know.
Alan Morgan was born in the early 1950s in Linslade, Bedfordshire, into a modest family that struggled to make ends meet. Growing up, he was known for his charm and good looks, traits that would later mask a darker side to his personality. His childhood was tumultuous. His father worked multiple jobs to support the family, and his mother often found herself overwhelmed by the pressures of managing a household on a limited income. As a result, young Alan learned early on how to navigate the complexities of adult life, developing a charisma that allowed him to charm his way out of trouble. In his teenage years, he became increasingly drawn to the local convenience store, where he would help out. It was in this environment that he discovered not just a passion for business, but also his interest in women. He was often seen flirting with customers, and his charm earned him a reputation as a smooth talker. This persona would follow him into adulthood, eventually leading him to meet his future wife, Carol, who was drawn to his confident demeanor. The couple married in the late 1970s, embarking on a life together that initially seemed promising. They opened a small convenience store in a council estate in Linslade, where they hoped to build a future. Carol, a dedicated partner, worked alongside Alan, managing the store while raising her 2 children from a previous relationship. However, as the years passed, the pressures of running a business began to take their toll. Financial difficulties crept in, creating a rift in their relationship. Alan's demeanor shifted. He became short-tempered and increasingly distant, leaving Carol to shoulder much of the burden. By 1981, the store was struggling to stay afloat, and rumors of Alan's infidelity began to circulate among the community. He was known as a womanizer, often seen chatting up female customers and spending time with other women. This behavior fueled speculation that he was unhappy in his marriage and seeking a way out. As tensions mounted, Carol confided in friends that she suspected Alan was cheating on her, adding an emotional layer to their already strained relationship. On the fateful day of August 13, 1981, Alan called the police in a panic, claiming to have discovered Carol's lifeless body in the storeroom of their store after returning from a cinema trip with her 2 children. The scene he encountered was one of horrific violence. Carol, only 36, had been brutally murdered. Detective Superintendent Brian Prickett, who would lead the investigation, described the attack as one of the worst he had ever seen. The sheer brutality of the assault on Carol's body made it evident to investigators that this was not a random act of violence but a deliberate murder. Detective Prickett arrived at the scene to find a gruesome tableau that would haunt him for decades. Carol's body lay surrounded by shattered glass and the remnants of a violent struggle. The storeroom, once a space for stocking shelves and managing inventory, had transformed into a crime scene filled with chaos and horror. The sight of the victim, a woman whose life had been snuffed out so brutally, impacted Prickett deeply. "It was the worst attack I've seen on a human being, definitely," he recalled, his voice still filled with emotion years later. Despite his urgent call to the police, Alan's demeanor raised immediate suspicions. he displayed none of the expected sorrow or grief that would typically accompany the discovery of a spouse's death. Instead, he seemed more concerned about the business implications of the murder rather than the loss of his wife.
Shop here because they're afraid of being caught up in the gossip.
What are they saying about you,
To be offhand that I killed my wife, and as the police know themselves, and you yourselves know, well, I was in Luton taking the kids to the pictures.
What grounds do they think they've got for saying that?
Well, because I was happy-go-lucky, I suppose. I was a bit of a womaniser, but that's all. That's the only reason.
How did the death of your wife affect you?
Affect me? Well, I closed the business for 7 weeks while the police were investigating it. I lost a lot of stock throughout, and I've had to sell the business now at a loss. The kids are all right, but I think myself and the kids think that it'd be better to get away because it's their future. They've got to live with a shadow over them all the time.
Are the police any nearer, in fact, catching the person that did kill your wife?
Well, they're saying they are because they're eliminating people all the time. So they must be nearer to catching the person.
If ever they do catch the killer, will you come back here?
I don't know. It all depends. I'd like to get hold of the killer, though. That's what I'd come back for.
Witness reports indicated that a man with distinctive features had fled the scene, but the investigation quickly turned its focus to Alan. Circumstantial evidence began to mount against him, particularly as it became clear that the store was struggling financially and that Alan had expressed discontent with his marriage. Detective Prickett and his team worked tirelessly to gather evidence, interviewing dozens of witnesses and following various leads. They noted Alan's arrogance during their interactions with him. He was a man who appeared to revel in the attention, even going so far as to participate in media interviews to proclaim his innocence. "How can I clear my name until the real murderer is caught?" he would say, his words tinged with an unsettling confidence that left investigators with a sense of unease. As the investigation progressed, it became apparent that Alan had been having an affair with a woman named Margaret Spooner, adding another layer of complexity to the case. Margaret was a younger woman who had been a frequent customer at the store, and she and Alan developed a relationship that would ultimately change the course of their lives. While police were initially focused on identifying an unknown assailant, they could not shake their suspicions about Alan. However, without concrete evidence, they could not make an arrest. For over 2 years, the case remained open, and the initial investigation faced numerous challenges. The lack of a breakthrough weighed heavily on Detective Prickett and his team. They were determined to find justice for Carol, but the investigation felt like a thorn in their side. Despite the frustration, they continued to review the evidence and interview witnesses periodically, hoping that new information would surface. They even enlisted the help of forensic experts and employed cutting-edge techniques of the time, but leads remained elusive. The community was rocked by the murder, and whispers of Alan's potential involvement persisted. Local gossip fueled speculation, leading Alan to conduct a series of interviews with the media in an attempt to clear his name. During these interviews, he tried to project an image of a grieving husband, but many found his demeanor unsettling. Reports emerged that he seemed more focused on the financial implications of the murder rather than expressing genuine grief for Carol's death. "I didn't do it," he would insist, but the public perception of him began to shift. As time passed, the case grew cold, and the community's attention began to wane. However, for Detective Prickett, the memory of Carol Morgan and the brutal manner of her death lingered. He often thought about the victim's family and the lack of closure they faced. Every anniversary of the murder served as a painful reminder of the unfulfilled promise of justice. Despite the frustration, he maintained hope that one day, the truth would come to light. The case remained cold until 2018, when a cold case review team took a fresh look at the unsolved murder. One of the first actions taken by the new detective in charge, Superintendent Carl Foster, was to revisit all previous witness interviews. It was during this process that they discovered a key witness, Jane Bunting, who had remained silent for decades out of loyalty to Margaret. When police approached her, she exclaimed, "I've been waiting for you to come see me for 40 years. Jane revealed that during a casual conversation at a pub, Alan had asked her if she knew anyone who could kill Carol. This admission became the catalyst for a renewed investigation into Alan's involvement in his wife's murder. The cold case team meticulously pieced together the evidence and conducted further interviews with Alan and Margaret, recording their conversations in secret.
wasn't me, and I had nothing to do with it.
And you had a new woman that you moved in with, you?
But Margaret, yeah.
Oh, and I say you, someone that you'd already been having sex with. But now you could carry on a relationship with her without any complications at all.
Mm.
You said the police weren't looking at you of being involved in this at all.
No, well, there wasn't nothing to hide on it.
And that you, after Carol's funeral, you just carried on, never went back to the cemetery, is that right?
No, don't think I ever did.
So how did you know
I didn't.
that the murder wasn't in the house?
I didn't.
So why send the kids upstairs?
Well,
How do you know the murderer's not upstairs?
because I didn't want the kids downstairs.
The
to
dog
start with.
disappeared. Then he could have killed the dog upstairs and still remain upstairs with an axe.
I don't know.
So why send them upstairs?
Because they hadn't got you in the bed. I don't know.
Is it because you knew nobody was there?
No,
You knew this was going to happen,
no.
and you knew they'd already gone.
Oh.
The plan was they would lock up behind him, you'd give them a key.
Was there? I had
Was this
nothing
the plan?
to do. No,
You tell me.
I'm telling you now. No, I did not do it. It might look like that way, but I did not. I have not paid anybody. I have not done it.
As the investigation progressed, detectives uncovered more details that painted a troubling picture of Alan's character. They found that he had a history of manipulative behavior and was known for using charm to get what he wanted. The evidence began to suggest that he had orchestrated a conspiracy to eliminate his wife, driven by greed and a desire to escape the financial burdens of their failing business. The trial began in June 2024, and the evidence against Alan was overwhelming. Prosecutors laid out a case that painted him as a man driven by desperation and infidelity, who had conspired to have his wife murdered in an attempt to escape his financial troubles and start anew with Margaret. It was revealed that Alan had constructed a cast-iron alibi, taking his stepchildren to the cinema while orchestrating the brutal murder at the store. As the trial unfolded, the public was riveted by the details of the case. The prosecution presented witness testimony that demonstrated Alan's lack of remorse and his calculated behavior in the aftermath of Carol's death. They highlighted how he had manipulated the narrative, portraying himself as a victim of circumstance while hiding his true intentions. In a shocking turn of events, the jury found Alan Morgan guilty of conspiring to murder his wife. As the judge imposed a life sentence, he described Alan as a wicked person, noting the brutality of the crime. Alan was sentenced to serve a minimum of 22 years, leaving the courtroom with a mixture of disbelief and defiance.
The brutality of the killing, which shocked all those who attended the scene, incorporating the use of a weapon such as a meat cleaver. The fact that Carol was effectively attacked in her own home, the shop premises and home of the family all being in the same building, and Carol's vulnerability, being left alone in these premises that evening. So far as mitigating factors are concerned, the principal mitigating factors are your age and health. These include your physical frailties, your type 1 diabetes, your diagnosed dementia and memory loss. In consequence, you will, in reality, be spending the rest of your life in prison. Alan Morgan, please stand up. For conspiracy to murder, I sentence you to imprisonment for life. Taking into account the aggravating and mitigating factors to which I have referred, the minimum term to be served shall be 22 years.
Margaret, on the other hand, was acquitted of all charges, a fact that left many in the community questioning her innocence. Throughout the years, Detective Prickett had never forgotten about Carol or the haunting sense of failure that accompanied the unsolved case. Now, with Alan's conviction, he felt a sense of relief but also a lingering frustration. The actual perpetrator of Carol's murder, the one who had wielded the weapon, remained unknown, leaving a shadow over the resolution of the case. Detective Prickett expressed hope that one day they would identify the person who had carried out the gruesome act, ensuring that all those involved in the conspiracy would be brought to justice. As Alan Morgan begins his prison sentence, the story of betrayal, love, and murder continues to resonate within the community of Linslade. The case had captured the public's imagination, drawing attention from media outlets and sparking discussions about the nature of justice and the complexities of human relationships. Families who had once known Carol began to share their memories of her, honoring her life while grappling with the tragedy of her untimely death. The cold case that haunted Detective Prickett for decades has finally found some closure, but the search for justice for Carol Morgan's death remains incomplete. As the years go by, the hope for new evidence continues to linger, and the community holds onto the belief that one day, they will uncover the truth about the actual case.